Welcome to the Four Seasons with Ken Johnson. I'm your host, Ken Johnson. So today we're talking about archetypes and allegory as it relates to the vampire. So as I consult with people and I write in my books and I lecture on issues and I even teach classes on this issue, vampires and aliens, they address culture from two perspectives. One, the vampire, they actually talk about culture from the aspect of the bedroom. Aliens cover everything else. So that's how that works. And so that's important to realize. Now, what is the archetype? What is the allegory? Why are we talking about this? And why is it important for a vampire? So, as I said, everything has a meaning behind it. That is called an allegory. And as we're talking about a specific type, that is called an archetype. And that comes from a guy named Carl Jung. He followed Sigmund Freud. Everybody knows Sigmund Freud. He founded clinical psychology as we know it. After Sigmund Freud came others, and one of them was Carl Jung. And Jung was important because he talked about the issue of collective consciousness. And so collective consciousness says that we instinctually know certain character types and their hidden meanings, despite where we come from in life, that every human knows. So we don't have to be told. And so this is great for writers because you really don't have to describe the character that much. You can change the character somewhat. You can change the allegory somewhat. But instinctually, we know. And so, as I said before, aliens and vampires talk about culture. Vampires talk about culture from the aspect of the bedroom. So the reason why we need to discuss this is certain people, based off of how they think and what they desire and what interests them and a whole host of issues, something in our brain, it gravitates us to a certain character. I love vampires and aliens because I love culture. Remember, I talked about 4 C's: culture, conflict, conservation, and commerce. So I love anything related to these characters. That's the reason why I love vampires and I love aliens. So I will watch garbage shows about vampires and aliens because I just love them. And I will read pretty much some of the most garbage stuff because I love the character. But the best writing is intentional writing. That's what I try to get people to focus on. And that is something that authors have abandoned. Conservatively, we have at least 6 million books being published every single year, new titles, and the vast majority of it's crap. And if you look at annual purchases by population, since the 1980s, we see some dramatic changes that kind of reinforces my assertion that the book market is turning to crap. First off, the number of annual book sales by people, by population, just looking at a single book purchase in a year's time by adult has dropped by over half. That's phenomenal. So you think about it, since the 1980s and the change where we had independent publishing, what we call the golden age of publishing, where everybody can publish their story now. The readers has said, yeah, that wasn't a good idea. There needs to be vetting. There needs to be some intentionality behind what you're doing. And your stories no longer resonate with us. So over half have said we're no longer purchasing books, which is a shame because now you can get books in all sorts of forms, including electronic. And electronic books go from free to as low as $1, $2, $3, $4. A really expensive electronic book would be about $7. That'd be a very expensive book on electronic format, but even free, readers saying, nope, don't want it. And that's because writing is no longer intentional. One of the other things we have learned looking at the data, especially from Bowker and others, is that instead of buying fiction, people are now buying nonfiction. So people like me, nonfiction authors, we make money, whereas fiction authors don't. We control over 70% of the market. So that's huge. So if you think that, I'm writing mystery and mystery is so popular, you've got a little less than 30% of the market is buying fiction, and you're buying a sliver of that. So I hate to crush your soul a little bit, but it's time for some hard truth, and you're vying for a very small sliver of the market. And so in that is the fantasy, the horror, some other big genres, and in that is vampires. So whenever you throw a vampire into the mix, it is important to talk about it from a female's perspective, because vampires allow people to talk about female sexuality. In our day and time now, we have a lot of freedoms for females that we didn't have. When I was a child, the role of a female was drastically different. Now, because of people like Oprah Winfrey and Martha Stewart and all these other fine, wonderful ladies, we have all sorts of female CEOs, CFOs, CIOs. We have female executive chefs. We have, you name it, they're doing it. They're crushing it. But we have a lot of stuff that we haven't delved into, and so that's the reason why we talk about female sexuality in vampire books, because that is still something that is somewhat taboo. Have you ever wondered why something that was over 200 years old cared about a 17-year-old? I mean, I'm 40-something years old. I didn't believe it would happen, but now I don't care for younger women. I'm married. I'm happy with the woman I'm with. I love her to death. But I'm just not attracted, even if we ever got a divorce. And God, I don't ever expect that to happen. I don't hope it does. I can't see me going to some 20-something-year-old. Why? We have nothing in common. She can speak for about 5 seconds, and I don't care about the words coming out of her mouth. She doesn't have the sophistication that I'm looking for. That's the reason why I love my wife, and that's the reason why I love marriage, because you get to find your best friend, and you get to grow with them, and they become your best lover for all your life. And that's what I love about it. I lucked out with somebody that was fantastic. But when you look at literature, these vampires, we have to suspend reality a bit. And so by suspension of reality, it actually disengages something in our brain. We actually have a defense mechanism in our brain that stops information from coming in. Imagine that. The very organ that is supposed to process data. You think about it. An ostrich's eyes are bigger than its brain. Most creatures cannot think like we can. This is why our skulls are so big. This is the reason why our brains are so developed. And yet, we cut out so much information that we lose out on a lot of the world. And one of the beauties about fiction is it circumnavigates, it goes around, it unlocks that mechanism in that brain so information can come in. And so a very intentional writer, a very intentional author can use Jung's techniques and the stuff that I talk about in this book here, and they can actually go and tell a story with purpose. And that's what the best stories do, is that they tell a story with purpose. And so when you look at it, you got this character that's 200 years old, whatever. It's not about that. He's sexuality. He's power. He is not real. He is a message. He is a concept. And so the whole purpose of biting, of the blood flow, of the release, all that is all sexually based. And if you realize that as a writer, as an author, as a storyteller, you can take that allegory, that metaphor, and create something transformative. And as a reader, I think it does you well to go back and relook at some of your stuff that you've been reading. So if you're like me and you love vampires, reread those stories. See with new eyes, what was that author? What was that screenwriter? What were they trying to say? And really pick up on those messages. And then reflect. How did that impact your life and change who you are? And that's a thing that I talk a lot about with writers. From author to author, from writer to writer. I'm saying it now. You have a sacred duty between you and your audience. And so you need to realize what you're saying in your messages. Have a message. People say, Ken, you talk about cliches. No, I'm not. I'm talking about life. I'm talking about science. I'm talking about psychology. I'm talking about writing with intention. Write with intention. Honor that sacred duty that you have, that sacred connection you have with your audience, and be deliberate. So one of the ways to do that is with a vampire. I hope you've enjoyed this episode, and that if you have any questions, please put any questions down below. I'll try to address them at a later date. One of the other things I like to do at this point in time is also recommend some purchases, because now it's getting close to Christmas. And I talked about my wife that I love so much. She is fantastic. And so she does these neat things with shirts, mugs, and tumblers. So you know those tumblers when you put ice in it, 2 or 3 days later, you still got ice? Yeah, she sells those. But what's great is she can print things on them that is different from what you see with those epoxy mugs. You know, that plastic stuff that real thick and cumbersome, and you pay $50 or $60 for a freaking mug or tumbler and can't put it in a dishwasher, but it's unique and I love it. Well, my wife has got a way of doing it where it's dishwasher safe. It's not thick. It's not bulky. It looks like it came straight from a factory, and it's got something personalized that is neat and fun, and you'll love it. It makes a great stocking stuffer, and it's affordable. So you're not paying $60 for a tumbler. You can actually pay something you can afford. Imagine that. She has shirts. She makes me all kind of neat little shirts. I love them. So our nieces and nephews, she spoils them. People, I know a lot of teachers. So whenever they have some fun event, they'll buy their friends shirts and things of that nature. So down below, you'll see her link. It's called Toshana's Creations. Please go see her store and buy from her. She would really thank you, and I think you will thank her for what you get because it's all quality. She amazes me with her talents and skills. Another friend that I would like for you to go visit, go to his YouTube channel. It's called Wallace, Knifeworks, and Homestead. It is Ricky Wallace. And this is a knife. I own a bunch of knives that he's made, and I love every single one of them. But this one right here is my go-to. It is, I'm Southern. You probably couldn't tell from my accent. I know I probably have a very Northern accent. But in Southern culture, we hunt and fish. That conservation thing that I talked about, yeah, that's one of the reasons why I talk about it. And so Ricky, he takes items that most people would not use, reclaimed stuff. So if you're into green living, repurposed metal, repurposed deer antler, repurposed hides, anything that you can imagine people would not normally purchase or want to use anymore, Ricky can take this and repurpose it into something that you want, that you really desire. And if you really want a unique gift, he can make some of the most fantastic knives. One of my favorite is a neat little one called a trout knife, and he makes them different ways. There's all these different ways he does it. One of them is I have a butter knife. You really need to look at this stuff. On his channel, he does a lot of goofy stuff as well. He goes fishing. He does all sorts of stuff. He's just country as all can get out, and I love him for it. And the guy is super intelligent, former military, very honorable person. If you look, sometimes you will actually see me on some of the older fishing videos. Probably won't see me out fishing him. That somehow probably got edited out. I wonder how that happens. Things happen though. But he's caught some fantastic fish. He is a fantastic angler as well as a hunter. He lives what he talks about. So when he wants to see somebody that's genuine, he's genuine through and through. What you see on his YouTube channel is the person you get. And so I highly recommend that you go to his YouTube channel, like and subscribe to his channel, and also consider purchasing one of his knives. He can also restore knives and fix knives of that nature. And speaking of like and subscribe, please hit the like and subscribe button. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and please stick with me for future episodes as we explore archetypes and allegory, writing, and the rest of the 4 C's, which is commerce, conservation, culture, and conflict. Have a great day. Bye.